Hi, I'm Sean Gannon, and this is Minute Math, and today we're learning about using the quadratic formula.
Minute Math, when you need help you use Minute Math.
We're given this problem right here, m squared minus 5m minus 14 equals 0, and we need to solve this using the quadratic formula. Well, first thing I want to do is find my a, my b value, and my c value. A value is 1 here. B value is -5, and C value -14. Once I have those values, I can use them in the quadratic formula. So x equals, right, a negative b, which is -5, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so -5 squared, minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. And now we just have to simplify this. So again, negative times a negative here is a +5, plus or minus, let's deal with inside the square root. -5 squared is a +25. 4 times the negative 1, 4 times 1 times -14 is a, well, -56. But then the two negatives, right, become a positive, plus a positive, all over 2 times 1, which is 2. Simplify that, keep on going. 5 plus or minus 25 plus 56 comes out to be 81 over 2 here. Keep on going. 5 plus or minus the square root of 81, which is 9 over 2. And now we're at a point where we've kind of simplified it. So we're going to break this into two parts here. Okay, we have our equals here, so x equals 5 plus 9 over 2 and 5 minus 9 over 2. And now we're going to solve both of those. That's what the plus and minus is for, each one individually. So 5 plus 9 is a 14 over 2, and 5 minus 9 is a -4 over 2. Keep going from there. X equals, well, 14 divided by 2 is 7. -4 divided by 2 is a -2. And so x is 7 and -2, and that is our final answer here. We're given this problem right here, b squared minus 4b plus 4 equals 0, and we want to solve using the quadratic formula. Let's go find my a, b, and c value. A value, the coefficient of b squared, is 1. B value, which is -4 here, and c value, which is 4. Now that we have those pieces, we just plug it into the quadratic formula. X equals a negative b, so negative, and then b is a negative number, two negatives, plus or minus the square root, -4 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 4, all over 2 times a, which is 1. And now we just have to simplify. Negative times a -4 is a +4, plus or minus the square root. -4 squared is a positive, well, 16. And then 4 times 4 again is 16. That's all over 2 times 1, which is 2. So now let's keep simplifying. 4 plus or minus, well, 16 minus 16 is 0, so we square root of 0 over 2. And, well, what's the square root of 0? 0. So we have 4 plus or minus 0 over 2. Well, that doesn't really change anything. We have two options, but it's 4 plus 0 and 4 minus 0, both are the same thing. So x just equals that, well, 4 now over 2, and 4 over 2 is 2. And so my final answer here is just x equals 2, or b. b equals 2. I guess I should fix that, right? I did that from the beginning. Well, if you saw that, if you wondered why, it's really the variable b. That's what I'm looking for here. So we have b here. The variable b, as we're solving for, this one's b. So our final answer here is b equals 2. We're given this problem right here, 2m squared plus 2m minus 12 equals 0, and we want to solve this using the quadratic formula. We want to find our a, our b value, and our c value. Those are the coefficients. A is 2, b is also 2, and c is -12. So with that information, we're going to use our quadratic formula. Our variable m is equal to a negative b value plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, which is 12 here, all over 2 times a, which is 2. And now we just have to simplify. Negative 2 is just, well, a negative 2, plus or minus the square root. 2 squared is 4, and then minus 4 times 2 times negative 12 is a negative 96 here. And that's minus a negative, so it's like plus a positive. All over 2 times 2, which is 4. Keep on going. 2 plus negative 2 plus or minus. 4 plus 96 is 100. Keep it 100, everybody. Divided by 4. Well, what's the square root of 100? Well, minus 2 plus or minus square root of 100 is 10 over 4. So now we can break that down over here. We have negative 2 plus or minus 10 all over 4. So we can say our m value is equal to negative 2 plus 10 over 4 and negative 2 minus 10 over 4. So we have to do both of them. So let's keep simplifying here. Negative 2 plus 10 is a positive 8 over 4. Negative 2 minus 10 is a negative, well, 12 over 4. Simplify that. 8 divided by 4 is a 2. And negative 12 divided by 4 is a negative 3. And my two values for m are 2 and negative 3. We're given this problem right here. 2x squared minus 3x minus 5 equals 0. And we want to solve this using the quadratic formula. Let's find my a, my b value, and my c value first. A is 2, b is negative 3, and c is negative 5. So then from here, we want to use our quadratic formula. Our variable x is equal to, well, negative b, so negative 3, plus or minus the square root, negative 3 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, negative 5. All over 2 times a, which is 2. Now we just have to simplify. Negative 3 times, or negative 3 is a positive 3. Square root, negative 3 squared is 9. And then 4 times 2 times a negative 5 is a negative 40. We have minus a negative 40, so we add a positive. It's all divided by 4. 2 times 2. Keep going. 3 plus or minus. Well, 9 plus 40 is 49 over 4. Keep simplifying. Square root of 49 is 7. And at this point, we have 3 plus or minus 7 divided by 4. Let's break this into two parts, the plus and then the minus. So x equals 3 plus 7 over 4, and x equals 3 minus 7 over 4. Well, 3 plus 7 is 10, and 3 minus 7 is a, well, negative 4. Let's simplify that. X equals 10 divided by 4 is a fraction 5 halves, and negative 4 divided by 4 is a negative 1. And so our final answer here is just x equals 5 halves and negative 1. We're given this problem right here. X squared plus 4x plus 3 equals 0, and we want to solve using the quadratic formula. Let's go find my a, my b value, and my c value. Those are the coefficients here. A is 1, b is 4, and c is 3. So now we're going to use our quadratic formula and plug in our values. Negative b being 4, plus or minus the square root of, well, 4 squared, b squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 3, all over 2 times 1. Well, let's go simplify this now. Negative 4 here, plus or minus the square root. 4 squared is, well, 16. And 4 times 1 times 3 is 12. So we minus 12 here, all over 2 times 1, 2. Keep on simplifying. Inside the square root, 16 minus 12 is a, well, good old 4 over 2. 4 plus or minus square root of 4, which is 2, over 2. And now we want to separate that out. We're given negative 4 plus or minus 2 over 2, so we can write this in two statements. x equals a negative 4 plus 2 over a2, and negative 4 minus 2 over a2. So we keep simplifying that. Negative 4 plus 2 is a negative 2 over 2, and negative 4 minus 2 is a negative 6 over 2. Keep going. X equals, well, negative 2 divided by 2 is a negative 1, and negative 6 divided by 2 is a negative 3. And so my two solutions here are x equals a negative 1 and a negative 3. We're given this problem right here. 2x squared plus 3x minus 20 equals 0, and we want to solve this using the quadratic formula. Well, what I want to do is find my a, my b value, and my c value. A value is 2, b value is 3, and c value is negative 20. Well, from here, we can use the quadratic formula. X equals negative b, which is 3, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is negative 20, all over 2a, which is 2. So where do we go from here? Well, we got to simplify. Negative 3 plus or minus the square root. 3 squared is 9, and minus 4, or 4 times 2 times negative 20, is, well, a negative 160. Minus a negative is the same as adding a positive, all over 2 times 2, which is 4. Simplify this out a little more. 9 plus 160 is, well, 169 over 4. Square root of 169, if you know that off the top of your head, is 13. So now we have negative 3 plus or minus 13 over 4. We can separate that out to be two parts. Negative 3 plus 13 over 4, and negative 3 minus 13 over 4. And now we have to simplify each one. Negative 3 plus 13 is 10 over 4, and negative 3 minus 13 is a negative 16 over 4. Well, 10 over 4 simplifies to be 5 halves, and negative 16 over 4 is a negative 4. And so there we have our final answer, x equals 5 halves and negative 4. We're given this problem right here, 4b squared plus 8b plus 7 equals 4, and we want to solve using the quadratic formula. Well, I have to have this equation equal to 0, so I'm going to subtract a 4 to both sides, and we're left with 4b squared plus 8b, and then positive 7 minus 4 is a 3. Now that it's equal to 0, I need to find my a, my b value, and my c value. A value is 4 here, b value is 8, and c value is 3. Now with that information, we can use the quadratic formula. A negative b, so minus 8, plus or minus the square root, 8 squared b squared minus 4a, which is 4, c, which is 3, all over 2 times a, which is 4. And now we're just simplifying this. Negative 8 plus or minus here, square root, well, 8 squared is 64. And, well, 4 times 3 is 48. All over 2 times 4, well, that's 8. Keep simplifying. Negative 8 plus or minus 64 minus 48 is a 16 over 8. Well, negative 8 now plus or minus square root of 16, which is 4 over 8. So now we have negative 8 plus or minus 4 over 8. And we're going to break it up into the plus and the minus. So negative 8 plus 4 over 8 and negative 8 minus 4 over 8. And we're going to simplify each one individually. Negative 4 plus 4 is negative 8 plus 4 is negative 4 over 8. And negative 8 minus 4 is a negative 12 over 8. Simplifying that, negative 4 divided by 8 is a negative 1/2. And negative 12 divided by 8 is a negative 3/2. And so my final answer here is b equals a negative 1/2 and a negative 3/2. We're given this problem right here. 2m squared minus 7m minus 13 equals a negative 10. and we want to solve for m using the quadratic formula. Well, I want to first get this equal to 0, so I have to add a 10 to both sides. I now have 2m squared minus 7m minus 3 equals 0. And with that now, we can find our a value, our b value, and our c value with the quadratic formula. A is 2, b is negative 7, and c is negative 3. So now let's use a quadratic formula here. M equals a negative b, so a negative 7, plus or minus the square root of negative 7 squared minus 4, a, which is 2, c, which is negative 3, all over 2 times a, which is 2. All right, let's go simplify this. Well, negative 7 is a positive 7, plus or minus the square root. Negative 7 squared is, well, 49, positive 49. And then 4 times 2 times a negative 3 is a, well, negative 24. But we have minus a negative, so it's like plus a positive. 2 times 2 is 4, and we're good. Keep on going. 7 plus or minus, let's simplify. 49 plus 24 is, well, 73. So we square root of 73 here, and that's over 4. And this one, well, we're pretty much done here. Square root of 73 doesn't simplify anymore. So let's separate this out. We have 7 plus square root of 73 over 4, and 7 minus square root of 73 over 4. And those are two final answers. We're given this problem right here. 2x squared minus 3x minus 15 equals 5. And we want to solve this using the quadratic formula. Well, first thing I want to get is this whole thing equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract a 5 to both sides. We have 2x squared now minus 3x, and then minus 15 minus 5 is a minus 20. And that's equal to 0. We now want to find our a, our b value, and our c value. A value is 2, b value is negative 3, c value negative 20, and we can use the quadratic formula here. X equals a negative b, or sorry, negative 3, right, b being negative 3, plus or minus the square root of negative 3 squared minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is negative 20, all over 2 times a, which is, well, 2. So now we want to simplify this. Well, negative 3 is a positive 3, plus or minus. Negative 3 squared is a 9. Minus 4 times 2 times negative 20 is a negative 160. And a negative minus a negative is like adding a positive. 2 times 2 is 4. Well, let's go simplify this a little more here. And what do we have? 3 plus or minus, well, 9 plus 160 is 169 over 4. Keep that going. We have 3 plus or minus, square root of 169 is, well, 13 over 4. So with that information, we have, well, 3 plus or minus 13 over 4. We can say x equals, we'll break them up to be 3 plus 13 over 4, and 3 minus 13 over 4. And now let's simplify each one individually. 3 plus 13 is 16 over 4, and 3 minus 13 is a negative 10 over 4. Keep going with that. 16 divided by 4 is a 4, and negative 10 divided by 4 is a negative 5 halves simplified. And so our two answers are x equals 4 and negative 5 halves. We're given this problem right here. X squared plus 2x minus 1 equals 2, and we want to solve this using the quadratic formula. I want to have this equation equal to 0, so I first have to subtract a 2 to both sides. I'm left with x squared plus 2x minus, well, minus 1 minus 2 is a minus 3, equals 0. I now want to find my a value, my b value, and my c value. A value is 1 here, b value is 2, and c value is a negative 3. So now I'm going to use my quadratic formula and plug in our values. We have a negative b, which is 2, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 2 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c is a negative 3, all over 2 times a, which is 1. So now from here, Let's simplify. We have negative 2 plus or minus the square root, well 2 squared is 4, minus 4 times 1 times a negative 3 is a negative 12. Well, minus a negative is plus a positive, all over 2 times 1, which is 2. Simplify that here. And we have negative 2 plus or minus 4 plus 12 is 16 over 2. Well, negative 2 plus or minus square root of 16, which is 4 over 2 here. And now we have a plus or minus, and we're kind of done simplifying like this. We need to break it up. So we write it as negative 2 plus 4 over 2, and negative 2 minus 4 over 2. Now we have to solve each one, or simplify each part individually. Negative 2 plus 4 is a positive 2 over 2, and negative 2 minus 4 is a negative 6 over 2. What do those simplify to be? Well, 2 divided by 2 is 1, and negative 6 divided by 2 is a negative 3. And so my two solutions here are x equals 1 and negative 3. We're given this problem right here, 2k squared plus 9k equals a negative 7, and we want to solve this using the quadratic formula. I want to have my equation equal to 0, so I have to add a 7 to both sides. That gives me 2k squared plus 9k plus 7 now equal to 0. We need to find our a, our b value, and our c value. A value is 2, b value is 9, and c value is 7. Now that we have that, we have to use our quadratic formula to solve. So negative, and then our b value is 2 is 9, or our b value is 9, sorry, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 9 squared, minus 4, a, which is 2, c, which is 7, all over 2 times a, which is 2. And now we want to simplify this. Well, negative 9 just stays here. Let's deal with the square root first. 9 squared is 81, and 4 times 2 times 7 is 56. All over 2 times 2, which is 4. Negative 9 plus or minus here, inside the square root. Well, it's 8 81. Whew, that's why I was thrown off. I was like, well, that should be negative. 81. 9 squared is 81. If you caught my mistake, let me know down below. But we fixed it, so we're good, right? 81 minus 56 is 25 over 4. Keep simplifying. Negative 9 plus or minus square root of 25, which is 5, all over 4. So where do we go from here? Well, what we want to do now is to separate both parts individually and simplify. So k is negative 9 plus 5 over 4, and negative 9 minus 5 over 4. Now we can solve both of them. K equals negative 9 plus 5 is a negative 4 over 4, and negative 9 minus 5 is a negative 14 over 4. So what does this simplify? Well, negative 4 over 4 is easy, negative 1. Negative 14 over 4 simplifies to be negative 7 halves. And so our two answers for k are k equals negative 1 and k equals negative 7 halves. We're given this problem right here, 5r squared equals 80, and we want to solve this using the quadratic formula. Well, we have to have our equation equal to 0, so I'm going to subtract an 80 to both sides here. 5r squared minus 80 equals 0. Alright, so now let's find our a value, our b value, and our c value. A value is 5. B value, well, we don't have just a variable r here, so our b value is 0. Be careful with that though. C value is negative 80. So now we use a quadratic formula to solve. We have negative b, which is 0, plus or minus the square root of 0, b value squared, minus 4 times a, which is 5, times c, which is negative 80. All over 2 times a, which is 5. So now let's simplify this. Well, negative 0 is just 0. I'll keep it there as a place value, just for one more time. Square root, well, 0 squared is 0, minus 4 times 5 times negative 80 is a negative 1600, all over 2 times 5, which is 10. Now this minus and negative is like adding a positive. So let's go simplify this. Well, that 0 doesn't really do anything for us, so we have plus or minus here. 0 plus 1600 is just 1600 over 10. Well, what's the square root of 1600? And that is 40. So we have plus or minus 40 over 10. So let's break that up into two parts. Positive 40 over 10 and a minus 40 over 10. Hopefully you can simplify that. 40 divided by 10 is 4, and negative 40 divided by 10 is a negative 4. And so our two solutions here are r equals 4 and negative 4. We're given this problem right here. 2x squared minus 36 equals x, and we want to solve using the quadratic formula. So first step I need to do is subtract, well, an x to both sides. I had to have my equation equal to 0. So we have 2x squared minus x minus 36 equals 0 here. Now with that information, we need to find our a, our b, and our c values. Okay? Well, a value is 2, b value is negative 1, and c value is a negative 36. So now with that, we can use the quadratic formula and plug in our values and solve. So negative b, so negative negative 1, plus or minus the square root b squared, negative 1 squared, minus 4a, which is 2, times c, which is negative 36, all over 2 times a, which is 2. So now let's simplify this. Negative negative 1 is a positive 1, plus or minus the square root, well, negative 1 squared, well, it's a positive 1, minus 4 times 2 times the negative 36 is a negative 288. Well, minus and negative is like adding a positive. All over 2 times 2, which is 4. Let's simplify that. 1 plus or minus here. 1 plus 288 is, well, 289. I know, difficult. Over 4. So square root of 289. If you know that off the top of your head, great for you. For me, I don't. But square root of 289 is 17 over 4. So now we have 1 plus or minus 17 over 4. So we need to solve for x for each one individually. So we're going to do 1 plus 17 over 4 and 1 minus 17 over 4. And now we have to solve each one. So x equals, well, 1 plus 17 is 18 over 4, and 1 minus 17 is a minus 16 over 4. So let's go simplify that. 18 over 4 simplifies to be 9 halves, and negative 16 divided by 4 is a negative 4. And so our two answers here are x equals 9 halves and a negative 4. We're given this problem right here. 5x squared plus 9x equals a negative 4, and we want to solve using the quadratic formula. We have to get our equation equal to 0 first, so I'm going to add a 4 to both sides. That gives us 5x squared plus 9x plus 4 equals 0. So now I can find my a, my b value, and my c value. A value is 5, b value is 9, and c value is 4. So now we can use that with our quadratic formula. X equals, well, negative b, so minus 9, plus or minus the square root of b squared, 9 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 5, times c, which is 4, all over 2 times a, which is 5. So now let's simplify. X equals, well, negative 9, plus or minus 9 squared is 81, and 4 times 5 times 4 is 80. All over, all of it, don't forget, 2 times 5, which is 10. Simplify that. Negative 9 plus or minus, well, square root, what's 81 minus 80? Good old 1 over 10. Square root of 1, well, negative 9 plus or minus, well, 1, right? All over 10 here. So we have negative 9 plus or minus 1 over 10. Now we have to separate this with the plus or minus. So we have negative 9 plus 1 over 10, and negative 9 minus 1 over 10. And now what we're going to do is solve each one individually. X equals negative 9 plus 1, which is a negative 8 over 10, and negative 9 minus 1 is a negative 10 over 10. Well, negative 8 divided by 10 simplifies to be negative 4/5. And negative 10 divided by 10 is a negative 1. And so my two answers here are x equals a negative 4/5 and a negative 1. We're given this problem right here. K squared minus 31 minus 2k equals negative 6 minus 3k squared minus 2k. And we want to solve using the quadratic formula. I have to get everything equal, or everything over to the other side, have it equal to 0. So I'm going to add a 6 to both sides. I'm going to add a 3k squared to both sides. Make sure you add it to its like terms. Oh, the 6. Didn't see the 31. Oh, but I dropped my pen. How embarrassing. If you found that embarrassing, let me know down below. But we add a 6 here. And then we add a 2k. This video is not going well so far. We'll see. 2k to both sides. So, what are we left with? Well, k squared plus 3k squared is a 4k squared. And then, well, the 2k's actually cancel here. Negative 2k and 2k, I'd put it there, cancel. And negative 31 plus 6 is a negative 25. That equals 0. So with this information now, we need to find our a value, our b value, and our c value. A value is 4. B value canceled out, so it's a 0. And our c value is negative 25. With that information, we get to use the quadratic formula. So k equals a negative b, which is 0, plus or minus square root of 0 squared minus 4 times a, which is 4, times c, which is negative 25, all over 2a. And that's 2 times 4. So let's simplify here. Negative 0 is just 0. I'll keep it as a placeholder for right now. Plus or minus 0 squared is 0, minus 4 times negative 25 is a negative 400. But we have minus a negative, so it's adding a positive. All over 2 times 4, which is 8. So what does that equal? Well, this 0 we don't really need anymore, so I'm going to write the plus or minus here. 0 plus 400 is, well, 400. The square root of 400 over 8. And what's the square root of 400? So we have plus or minus, well, square root of 400, which is 20, divided by 8. So now let's go break it up into two parts. Positive plus 200, or sorry, plus 20 over 8, and then minus 20 over 8. And we're going to simplify both parts now. So 20 divided by 8 simplified as 5 halves, and negative 20 divided by 8 is negative 5 halves. And so here we have our final answer here. K is equal to 5 halves and a negative 5 halves. We're given this problem right here. 9n squared equals 4 plus 7m, and we want to solve this using the quadratic formula. Well, I have to have this whole thing equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract a 4 to both sides, and minus a 7n to both sides. There's no like term, so really it's kind of jumbled up, but it's 9n squared minus 7n minus 4 equals 0. So with this information, we need to find our a value, our b value, and our c value. A value is 9, b is negative 7, and c is negative 4. Now with this, we need to use our quadratic formula and plug in our values. So it's a negative b, so negative 7, careful of the double negative, plus or minus square root of negative 7, the b value squared, minus 4 times a, which is 9, times c, which is negative 4. All over 2 times a, a being 9. So we simplify this. Negative 7 is a positive 7. Plus or minus, well, negative 7 squared is 49. So we have 49 here. And 4 times 9 times negative 4 is a minus 144. Well, minus a negative is like adding a positive. 2 divided by 9 is, well, 18. We'll simplify that. 7 plus or minus here. 49 plus 144, square root of 193, and that's over 18. And here actually we're pretty much done. Square root of 193 doesn't really simplify in anything. So we have to break this up into two parts. So 7 plus square root of 193 over 18, and 7 minus square root of 193 over 18. And these are our two answers. So n plus square root, n equals 7 plus square root of 193 over 18, and 7 minus square root of 193 over 18. That's our final answer. We're given this problem right here, 8n squared plus 4n minus 16 equals a negative n squared. And we want to solve this using the quadratic formula. Well, I have to have my equation equal to 0. So I'm going to add an n squared to both sides. 8n squared plus n squared is a good old 9n squared. Bring down the rest, 4n minus 16, and it's equal to 0. So let's go find our a value, b value, and c value. A value is 9, b value is 4, c value is negative 16. Alright, so now we're going to use that information and use a quadratic formula. Negative b, so negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times a, which is 9, times c, which is negative 16. All over 2 times a, which is 9. So now let's go simplify this. Negative 4 here, plus or minus the square root, 4 squared, 16, minus, well, what's 4 times 9 times negative 16? And that's a negative 576. And, well, minus a negative is like adding a positive. 2 times 9 is 18. Simplify that a little bit. We have negative 4 plus or minus 16 plus 576 is the square root of 592 over 18. Okay? Well, square root of 592 can simplify to be 4 square root of 37. That's over 18. And now 2 goes into 4, and this 4, and 2 goes into 18, so we can simplify that. And we have negative 2 plus or minus 2 square root of 37 over 18 divided by 2 is 9. So now we have this kind of jumbled number with plus or minus. So let's separate that out. We have negative 2 plus 2 square root of 37 over 9, and negative 2 minus 2 square root of 37 over 9. And we actually can't simplify this anymore, so this is our final answer. N equals negative 2 plus 2 square root of 37 over 9, and negative 2 minus 2 square root of 37 over 9. We're given this problem right here. 8n squared plus 7n minus 15 equals negative 7, and we want to solve this using the quadratic formula. First thing I want to do is get everything to the left-hand side and have it equal to 0. So I'm going to add a 7 to both sides. That gives us here, well, 8n squared plus 7n, and negative 15 plus 7 is a minus 8. That equals 0. Well, now we need our a, b, and c values. So let's go find that. A value is 8, b value is 7, and c value is negative 8. And now we're going to use that with the quadratic formula. Plug them in. N equals a negative b, so minus 7, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 7 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 8, times c, which is negative 8. All over 2a. Oh, sorry. A is, I said a, but I want 8. I always do that when it's 8's and a's. 2 times 8. Okay, so let's go simplify this. Minus 7 stays there, plus or minus. Take our time here. 7 squared is 49. Minus, well, what's 4 times 8 times negative 8? That's a negative 256. And minus a negative is adding a positive. 2 times 8 is 16. So let's simplify this a little more. Negative 7 over here, plus or minus. Well, 49 plus 256 is 305. And then we have 16 down here. And, well, this doesn't really simplify anymore. We have the plus or minus here, but square root of 305 doesn't really break down anymore. So we have n equals, we can write it separated, negative 7 plus square root of 305 over 16, and negative 7 minus square root Forgot the square root there. Just getting everything here. Let's keep overly erasing. So negative 7 minus square root of 305 over 16. So these two right here are our final answer. Hope this video is helpful to you, and if it was, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and like this video. This helps us make more free math lessons for you and for everyone else. So as always, thanks for watching.
Minute Math. When you need help, you use Minute Math. Minute Math. Minute Math. When you need help, you use Minute Math. MinuteMathTutor.com.